We are now recording. So Ian Patrick, you're on.
Thank you, Gary, and welcome to everyone. I think we've got 45 people on, which is excellent. This is the Miracle Network's first ever webinar, so I'm pretty excited about it. This is a historic moment in the network's history, and I'm really thrilled that on this occasion we can have Gary Craig, who's the creator of EFT. I mean, Gary has really kind of set this up, and so he's at the master controls there, operating the whole thing. And I think he's well used to doing that. So it all should go pretty smoothly. And we also have Mike Warwick on. That's Mike. And,
Mike has to say something for people to see him.
Oh, okay. Well, you can't see Mike, but he's on. And we also have Sheri Baker, who's also been working with Gary. So I think I'm going to hand over to Gary or hand over to Mike, and they're going to have a conversation. And actually, Gary's got some instructions for us. So,
okay. All right.
I think this is not rehearsed. What we are going to be looking at is the connection between EFT and A Course in Miracles, and I personally hadn't realized the close connection between the two until very recently. So, and also Gary's going to talk about you have to remind me what it's called, Optimal EFT,
yes,
which is kind of a much more spiritual version of EFT, which is very, very closely aligned with the ideas of the Course in Miracles, that there's an inner healer, which the Course would call the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
So it's a very interesting parallel between the two disciplines. So.
Yeah, and what Mike and I are going to do is have a conversation to begin with questions and answers to establish, that, and then we're going to get into the optimal EFT and the close link between the two and how they can be used together and this kind of thing. But at the moment, I have a mentor myself in the course, which is Sheri Baker. I'd just like to have Sheri. Would you just come on and say hello to everybody for a second, just so they know who you are?
Hello.
There you are. Okay.
Everybody, this is exciting.
Well, most of the questions and answers are going to be between Mike and I and the audience and I. I wanted Sheri here just in case she had some points to make that might be useful. She's also a highly proficient EFTer as well, and I just thought it'd be worthwhile to have her in the background. So thank you, Sheri.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. With that in mind, I guess Ian will just turn it over to Mike, and Mike can ask some questions. Does that seem right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go for it.
You're on, Mike. Go ahead.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I mean, first of all, can I just say a massive, massive thank you to Gary and Sheri for making this possible, because it's a really, really, personally, it's a very exciting moment. I think it's a very significant moment for us as a Course in Miracles community here in the UK. And, and thank you for doing this for the UK Miracle Network. It means an awful lot. The first question, really, Gary, is can you talk about how you first came to A Course in Miracles, and your experience of the course?
Well, this was back in 1986, and at the time, I was running an investment business. It had nothing to do with A Course in Miracles or anything. It was just straight business. How can you make some money making investments, that kind of thing. And Bob Scutch, who now is one of those running the Foundation for Inner Peace that publishes The Course in Miracles, called me up because he was interested in my investment. We had a lunch. I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I run the Foundation for Inner Peace." I said, "What's that?" He said, "We publish The Course in Miracles." I said, "What's that?" And of course, he couldn't tell me in a sentence or two. So he gave me his book, Journey Without Distance, which is to me, the foundational book about how all this began, how the course began, how Helen Schuckman, scribed everything and all of that. And with that, I was hooked. I got into the course. 2 years later, I had a revelation, an extraordinary revelation. It goes beyond holy instant. Extraordinary revelation, which just shifted everything. Eventually, EFT came along, and that's the history.
Okay, so I think people might be interested in the revelation that you had.
Well, I had been reading the course. I say reading the course, sort of reading it, as most people do. I had my difficulties with it. You know, I didn't understand it. I'd fall asleep while I was trying to read it and all of that. But I was getting messages from it, and it kept talking about a holy instant. And I kept saying to myself, well, where's my holy instant? I've been doing the reading, you know, come on. But one morning I was lying in bed. This is 1988. I was waking up and I was going in through my head on my large list of things to do that I had piled upon myself. And it was an ominous list. You know, I tend to say yes to everything and I get myself in trouble, you know. But anyway, I was going through it and it was just so ominous. I said to myself, who needs this? The actual language was a little more graphic, but the important point is I really meant it when I said it. Who needs this? And at that moment, as I look back at it, I let go of this world. I simply just let go of it. And when I did, flooding in came this incredible sense of love that the Course keeps talking about. And I was in the arms of the Creator. I was in the presence of the Creator. And it is an indescribable experience. It is a love that is nothing like the love we practice here in the dream, the world of separated bodies. And I don't know how long I was there because there's no time in it, but I gather it was as time goes, a few moments or a few minutes or something like that. And when I was there, I very clearly recall that this state is the real reality, this experience we have running around inside separate bodies, the dream, if you will, is really nothing more than a dream. And I could see it at that moment. And I was saying to myself, I'm staying. But I didn't. I flipped back in. I've been trying to get back ever since. Okay, and that's what Optimal EFT is about, by the way. It's really my path about getting back there that other people can study. So anyway, that's that answer.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, there'll be people on the webinar who aren't really familiar with EFT, and there are two types of EFT that you personally endorse. First of all, you're the founder of EFT, and you're the originator of it, and it's a healing modality that's touched millions of people worldwide. Maybe first of all, could you talk about EFT, what it is, and maybe how it relates to the Course in Miracles in your opinion?
Well, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. I mean, that's what the letters stand for. And it's an emotional version of acupuncture, except we don't use needles. We're really bringing in the acupuncture meridian system process into the normal therapy process. But instead of using needles, we tune in, we identify a particular issue. We tune into it. And then we bring peace to the system regarding that issue, but we do it mechanically. That is, we tap on certain meridian points on our body as we're tuned into it. Now, that's a very simplified version of it, but just that simplified version that people have learned has gone a long way towards helping them get rid of unwanted memories, physical issues, and things like that. It has been so popular. I started this 20 years ago, and this mechanical form has been so popular and easy to use that it has been imitated hundreds of times all over the internet. I only point that out because if you're looking for EFT on the internet, you're likely to find all kinds of other versions of it, something rather EFT this or that, or it's nicknamed tapping, something or other, or something tapping. It goes on and on and on and on. These are all spin-offs, if you will, or sort of imitations, but I haven't found any yet that are really properly reflective of what I would like to see anyway. So I only point that out because there's a whole bunch of stuff out there calling itself EFT. Our website is emofree, EMOFREE.com. That's where you'll find the find the original. Okay. Did I answer the question?
Yes. So when we're looking for EFT resources, we're really looking for gold standard EFT and optimal EFT, and we're going to find the real EFT. We're going to find that on emo3.com.
Yes, that's correct. You'll find both versions.
Yeah. Okay. So, how does, in your opinion, how does A Course in Miracles, and how do they come together, A Course in Miracles and EFT, at least in your experience and in your opinion?
Well, I started EFT in 1995 after having learned from a Dr. Roger Callahan some of the ideas of this previously, and I refined that and made it EFT in 1995. At the time, I wanted to integrate in A Course in Miracles concepts, even at that point I was still a newbie at the Course in Miracles compared to where I am now. And I would ask people about, bringing the spiritual ideas and Holy Spirit things and this kind of stuff, and people just did not warm up to it. They would kind of roll their eyes at me, and that was a message to me saying, we're just not ready yet. And maybe it's because I wasn't ready yet. I wasn't good enough at the course yet to be really to integrate it. So I integrated I just put it out in the mechanical form we're talking about. And of course, people would use EFT in this mechanical form to get what the course calls a better version of the dream. That is, I'm still in the dream. I don't even know I'm dreaming, but I'd much rather have this dream without my headaches, okay? I'd much rather have my dream without these nightmares or that bothersome memory, okay? So that's what it would do. It would give people a better version of the dream, although that's not the way I would say it to folks, because they just weren't ready to hear about a dream. Okay. So in the early years, what I would do to sort of bring in the spiritual aspect of it would be to use a phrase like EFT properly done should be done through you, not by you. And people would come up to that. It had a nice ring to it, but I'm not too sure they really did it through them rather than by them, because our setup here is we're the ego and the therapist is going to do the magic thing for the client. We're separate, and that's the way it works. So it wasn't until more recently when I did Optimal EFT that I started asking people this question again, and now eyes are lighting up. Spiritual thing, you're going to combine that with the EFT? Oh, I want to hear about that, etc. And so starting 6 months ago or so, I launched Optimal EFT, and I've had a pretty strong response so far.
Yeah. So what kind of thing, as Course in Miracles students, how can Optimal EFT help us with our, with our daily practice?
Well, let's go back to the mechanical EFT for a moment, because that'll help me answer that question. The mechanical EFT really has two parts to it in its simplest form. Number one, we identify the issue. The time when my father humiliated me in front of my friends at my birthday party and called me fatso. Okay, and we're still worked up about that. So we identify the issue, and then we bring peace to the system regarding that issue mechanically by tapping on these meridians. It has a way of, these meridians tend to get disrupted, zzz, like that. It's sort of like a short circuit in a radio, where you hear static. And so by tapping on them, we're sending balancing energy down them. The zzz sort of just goes away. They have peace about it. And properly done, they couldn't get upset about that issue to save their soul. Now, that all by itself is, without even mentioning it, has a big value regarding the Course in Miracles and its goal of removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. If I'm carrying around this this anger at my father for what he did at my birthday party, or these abuses that my parents may have done, or the rejections I may have gotten from my peers, and all this other stuff that I've carried around, now we can mechanically take those memories one by one, and each time we do, they go, oh, that's no big deal. We have injected a form of forgiveness. We are lighter on the subject. That helps us remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And so, even though I wasn't putting it forward that way in the early years, that is what would be happening. You know, if you were angry at your mother for something, for abusive activities, and now you can see your mother in a different light, she is calling for love, for example, rather than exhibiting it, to use Course terms. Now we are lighter on the subject. How am I doing so far? Is that clear?
Yes, and you know, I could talk about my own experience of using EFT and Course in Miracles very briefly. It's through doing the gold standard EFT, the tapping EFT, that I was able to address lots of guilts and resentments and angers and fears and all that kind of heavy stuff that we carry around.
Yeah.
And be able to conceive that maybe the love of God is something that's always there, and maybe I do deserve that. You know, maybe that is there for me all the time. Maybe there's a little opening there, you know, and that's how I personally been using it.
Yeah, because you were removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. That's what the lessons do in the Course. That's what they're designed to do. This is another way to do it. It's turned out to be highly efficient. We have, with that mechanical form, we have taken the conventional therapy process and reduced it down to what may take weeks, months, or years, down to minutes or hours, typically. So, I mean, that's a big help to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. But let me go on, Mike, to talk about, to complete the question you asked earlier. I just talked about the mechanics of the tapping form, gold standard form, you know, where we identify the issue, bring peace to the system. We do the same thing with optimal EFT. We still identify the issue. And by the way, there can be some skills involved in that. And that's why we have a whole course that's free for people on our website and so on. But we identify the issue, and we still bring peace to the system. But this time, rather than bring peace to the system by a mechanical tapping process, we instead invite in what I am calling in optimal EFT terms the unseen therapist. That is the spiritual representative from the other side that's going to come in. We know it in Course in Miracles terms as Holy Spirit. So we're inviting, and I don't care what you call it. Some people will call it Jesus, some people will call it Buddha, some people will just call it the light, you know, Holy Spirit or whatever. But it's inviting in this ultimate love into the process instead of mechanically tapping. There is some skills in that. There is, you know, mild meditation that goes on and so on, but it's practice. We get better and better and better at it. And in doing so, I am getting and seeing, and others are getting and seeing, deeper results than with the mechanical tapping, quicker results in many cases. That doesn't mean we have nirvana and everything just fades all of a sudden. But the results that we're getting are very impressive. They're impressing me, and I'm comparing it to something that's already impressive, which is our mechanical tapping. So let me pause there. Maybe you have a question.
Well, yes. I mean, I think you when you talk about some of the results that you've had with Optimal EFT, I mean, you've had some quite miraculous things happening. Could you talk about some of those? Yeah.
One of them that really got my attention early on was a lady that had a serious stroke maybe 6 years ago. Now, the lady was 80 years old. She didn't know anything about optimal EFT. It was her daughter that was learning optimal EFT. So her daughter learned the basics of it. And she sat down very quietly, identified, and imagined herself to be her mother. We're all one, so that's not a big reach, especially for this audience, okay? So she imagined herself being her mother, one with her mother, imagined herself having this stroke, invited in unseen therapist, Holy Spirit, you know, to resolve the issue. And she did it. This can often be done in minutes, by the way, but in this particular case, she did it for 50 minutes. And near the end of that time, her mother says to her, there's some kind of tingling or something strange in my legs. And she stood up. Now, mind you, previous to this, her stroke was so severe that she had to hold on to two different people to be able to walk across her living room. Okay. She gets up and she starts walking, holding on only to her daughter. And then she starts walking and walked 5,000 meters and eventually walked the whole thing without holding on to anybody. There's a video of it, of her walking on our website. You can see a very minuscule limp. It's a noticeable limp, but it's nothing like having to hold on to two people. And I talked to her, the daughter, 2 or 3 months later, and the results are still holding. Now, with the mechanical tapping, I would often see results with strokes, but they would be temporary. They would be partial, like somebody could move their arm a little higher or something like that. And you'd have to keep tapping to keep the result. But this was one time, and whoa, here it is. Now the question arises, well, gee, why don't we just do that to everybody, and everybody, all the hospitals will not have patients anymore, and so on. And I have to go back to something, I believe it's in the psychotherapy pamphlet, that says the healing that the Holy Spirit, unseen therapists, can do is limited by the limitations of the therapist and the limitations of the client. And those limitations it's speaking about are, of course, how high up the spiritual ladder they have gone, how much ego resistance do they have in all this, because obviously unseen therapist is in here trying to undo the belief in separation, which is something that most people don't even realize is a problem. Okay? So that's why we don't get all kinds of results with everybody. And that's why practice of optimal EFT and the Course in Miracles principles together is likely to speed up our path.
Yeah. And we had a conversation earlier this week in preparation for this interview where we were talking about Optimal EFT aims their healing at the root cause of all of our problems. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, let me go back to the tapping form first. What we're talking about there is what appears to be a aha to many people. That is, we're aiming at the emotional causes of our diseases, our cancers, multiple sclerosis, and so on. The angers, guilts, griefs, and stuff that we carry around on this separated level is a major cause of if not the cause often, as the world sees it, for these issues. And by eliminating those with mechanical tapping, all kinds of physical things have faded. Okay. Optimal EFT borrows from all the Course in Miracles principles and goes underneath that to the ultimate cause of all problems, which is the belief in separation. Now, that's a much harder thing to sell to the public, to the typical client, because they don't realize they're separated to begin with, and they don't want to hear about it. Okay, all they want to do is I want my headache to go away. Okay, so it's a challenge, and that's why I have not as many people interested in optimal EFT as I do in the larger tapping version. But those who are into it are really into it, and we're really getting results. And it's from this core of really motivated people that I think we're going to start spreading not only optimal EFT, but obviously its underpinnings, which is a Course in Miracles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It occurs to me now there might be some people who might have some questions based on what we've talked about, or maybe Sheri's got some comments or questions that she might want to, points she might want to put forward. Do you think, should we open it up a little bit now?
Well, Sheri, go ahead.
Okay, well, I can just talk about how I started. I was a Course in Miracles student long before I discovered EFT. And it got to a place where some of my students asked me if they could meet with me and talk about their issues, and maybe I could throw some spiritual principle at their issues and we could resolve them. And I said, sure, that sounds like something I could do. And I would meet with people and we could identify the issue, we could identify the block, and we would employ what Course in Miracles talks about as the process of forgiveness. And so we recall the projection, we take responsibility. This is all about me. It's not what the other person did or said. And step 2, we're going to choose another teacher to listen to. We're not going to listen to fear. We're going to choose the way of the Holy Spirit, a more loving way to interpret the situation. Step 3, we give it to Holy Spirit, and then we see what happens. And I found that when I discovered EFT, I could get them past that much more quickly and at a much deeper level, where we were angry and we were looking at it from a higher place. There was a lot of discussion, and the Course says, you know, if you follow me years, with EFT, we were saving hundreds of thousands of years. We were getting past the anger, not just I'm not angry anymore, but I am so not angry. Whereas before, they still were a lousy person that they did that to me. It wasn't quite as deep as with EFT, where we were able to really get to that, the energetic disruption, whatever it was that was so difficult to release with just the words. It was a way to really get that anger or whatever it was gone. And they would tell me, it is just not even remotely there. I can't be angry if I tried. So I found that EFT was so helpful in releasing what it was that we were identifying.
Yeah, good. And yeah, and I would just echo that, Sheri, myself. Now let me, if I can, instruct people that want to ask questions again and how to raise your hand. First of all, you put your cursor on the screen. You then see some clickable items at the bottom. One of those is participants. Click on that, and then click on raise your hand, and I will see your hand raised here. We'll call on you, and you can ask your question. We have some shy people here, Mike.
Oh, no questions. Not yet.
No, well, not yet. They'll come along. Do you have other questions you want to ask?
Well, yes. I was at the we have a thing in London called Miracles Cafe that Ian's been running for about 25 years. Ian, is that right?
Not quite that long. 13.
About 13 years. And there was a lady came up to me and she said, "Oh, you know, I've heard about EFT and I know it can be used to heal physical ailments, but can it also be used to release limiting beliefs, for instance? Could you?" And it definitely can. I mean, can you talk about that and maybe its relationship to us as Course in Miracles students, Gary?
Well, yeah, we. In this dream of separated people, we obviously develop a whole bunch of beliefs. They are necessary for us to, get through this dream, okay? To make the simple example, we have a belief when we see a stop sign that we're driving, we're supposed to stop. Okay, that's a very simple belief, but it's one of thousands of beliefs that we have that gets us through this world. But we have other beliefs about, look out for people that may well cheat you. There's a bunch of people out there that are out to get you, and then they're this kind of thing. Okay, we got beliefs like that, sort of cautions, if you will. And while those are useful within the dream, they tend to keep us in the dream because those people out there that may cheat me are separate from me. Hence, we are emphasizing the separateness by that very fact. To continue with that, one of the beliefs would be, I need to be very cautious. I need to be fearful of my father who has beaten me constantly during my childhood. He is an evil person. He was born evil, and so on. Okay. Now that also is a very limiting separation type belief. With EFT, we can start going to the specific events where these abuses occurred. And one by one, as we do them, the victim, our client, starts to have a different perception of that. It starts to change naturally towards course principles. They're likely to say something like, well, okay, but he's the one with the problem. I was just unfortunately in the way. He's the one in his own upbringing was abused himself. He's the one with lots of anger. He has to put it out in various ways. And this comes about naturally with the client by reducing and eliminating all the sting of these abuses. And when you take the sting away, the more natural, the more course-oriented perceptions start to show up. He is calling for love, not exhibiting it. He's calling for love. They see it in that light. It's much more releasing to them. It gives them much more peace, much more freedom. Now, they have other abuses and other things going on in their world too, and we've got to go address those. But just addressing beliefs like that and changing them at the central core part moves people in the course directions.
Mm-hmm. So both what yourself and Sheri are saying is that we can use EFT and we can go for the blocks, remove them, dissolve them, allow them to disappear into the nothingness that they actually are.
Yes.
Take the sting out of them, see them differently, have more peace, and that's part of our awakening process.
Yeah, indeed, yes.
Mm. Do I need to go to a practitioner to do this?
No, it is not required to do that. You can do, with Optimal EFT, you can certainly do it on your own. You can do the tapping on your own too, but I want to shift more to the Optimal EFT because it's the really newer advancement and the more useful thing. One can just sit down and identify an issue of their own, bring in unseen therapists, Holy Spirit, and are likely to get results. Maybe not prolific results at first because it takes a little practice. But you can get results and results. Now, one of the things we're finding is that when more than one person is doing it at a time, people are working together, as in, the arc of peace is entered 2 by 2. That's, of course, quote. Okay. When they do it together, the results tend to be deeper, faster, more recognizable. And in fact, we now have, and anybody here who's interested in it can go to our website and ask me to join a group. There are groups get together, 3, 4, 5, 6 people at a time. They get together, they practice Optimal EFT, that is, bringing in unseen therapists, Holy Spirit, into their various issues, and they all work on each other's issues. And they're really astonished with their results. To me, if the total possibilities are this high, I think we're getting this high so far, okay? But that is astonishing. If we can get more practice and more practice, we're going to get up like this and 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 this. And I think we're going to start approaching, for those who are really into it, people are going to get more and more into these revelations that, like I've had. I'm going to get into my own again. It's going to happen more and more often, and hopefully I'll get there in a permanent state. We will see how that works out, but at least we're approaching that in an intelligent way, I think.
Okay. I wonder if is there anything we could do with all the people on the webinar now that might be experiential? Maybe there's the extending love exercise that's done, or maybe working together. I don't know. Maybe that's not appropriate now. What are your thoughts?
We do have a question right now, so let me. We can address that in a moment. But let me unmute Denise. Denise, you have a question, please.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Fine. You look nice.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you? Yeah.
Yes, I do have a question. I was just wondering, would there be time on this seminar to maybe teach us how to do it? And if you can agree to do that, could I be a substitute for you to work on me, please?
Well, my dear, since you're the only one so far brave enough to ask a question, yes. How's that?
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell me, what kind of issue and remember, we're in a public venue here, so what kind of issue might you be wanting some assistance with?
About 9 days ago, I fell over and I hurt myself quite badly. I've broken my arm here. I fractured my wrist. And that's very painful. But more painful is all the damage that I've done, which I think would be called deep tissue injury, which is all up here in my shoulders and in my all here. And I would call it excruciating pain. And every day I've been crying with the pain. It's so bad.
So on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is the worst the pain has ever been, would you call that a 10, a 9, an 8? What would you call it? Currently,
I would say
at the moment.
I would say 10. Up here, it's a 10. Even getting dressed in the morning, it's excruciating pain to do any small task. It's just really, really very bad pain.
Okay, and what about the arm that's broken? Is that a 10 as well?
I would maybe say maybe 8, but when I use it to do something, which I do have to sometimes, because I live on my own, then it would be a 10. And when I'm in bed at night, and I'm even just laying that flat on the pillow, it's still very painful because it's still fractured.
Okay.
It's not healed.
All right. So here's what I have in mind, and this might be fun, but I have to give a little a few thoughts up front. Number one, we don't get 100% with optimal EFT.
Yes,
what we're going to do here now is we're going to experience it anyway, in a way where not only might you get some results, but other people joining in might get some results as well. So here's what we're going to practice. First of all, I am going to do it myself, just me. I'm going to be very quiet. I'm going to imagine that I'm you with these pains.
Okay.
I'm going to bring in unseen therapists. You need not do anything. The audience need not do anything. I'm just simply going to do that. Now, I don't know if we're going to do 1 round or 2 or 3 or what. I'm going to try. I just want to see if there is any improvement. Okay? So, and later on, what we're going to do is we're going to involve you into it. That there's more than one person comes into it. And then we're going to involve the entire audience. And so let me ask the audience right now for those who may have a physical discomfort of any kind. It doesn't have to be your physical discomfort. It could be a headache. It could be a backache. It could be, your toe hurts. It could be a stomach distress, a sinus problem, whatever. Any kind of physical discomfort. Just notice what it is and give it a 0 to 10 rating as far as its intensity. Now, just make a little note of that. We will deal with that later. Okay? So, round 1, what we're going to do is I'm going to be very quiet. I'm going to be you. I'm going to see if this is going to work for you. Okay? All right. See you guys in a minute. All right, Denise, check it out. Is it still a 10 up here?
Gosh, that's gone down to about a 7.
Okay.
Wow. Oh. Maybe 7 or 8.
Okay. And what about your arm? Is the pain still the same?
It's a gentle aching at the moment. Let me see. Yes, it's still very bad when I press on it because of the breaking.
Yeah, but you have to press on it to get the pain.
It's been like achy, quite achy and painful. But that does feel a bit better also.
Roughly a 7 or 8 compared to a 10?
I would say that's maybe a 5 now.
Maybe a 5.
Yes,
Okay, all right. I'm going to do another round on this. Same kind of thing. It's just going to be me doing it. All right, I just want to see what happens. All right, so see you in a minute. All right, check it out again. Is it still the roughly 8 that it was? 8 and 5?
I would say this would be about a 5 now.
Okay, it was a 7 or 8, now it's a 5. And what about the arm?
Maybe 4.
Maybe 4. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to have the two of us join together. Okay, but I need to give you a little instruction here, okay? So let me first of all talk about what I did. I just simply was quiet. I became you, and it doesn't matter that we're 8,000 miles apart, okay?
Yes.
Because time and space don't matter here, okay? So I just became you. I brought in unseen therapy, and I brought in love, healing love, to this part of the body as well as here. That's what I did. I would imagine it. I would imagine knots being there, then being untied. I imagine it all being red and then, becoming pink, healthy. That's what I would imagine having happen. Bringing an unseen therapist to do this, not me. Okay. Do you happen to have headphones?
Not only a very small pair. Let me show you.
Well, no, never mind, Denise. Okay, I'll wait for her to get back. I get a little note here.
Only these, the very small ones.
Well, let's leave it.
No.
Let's leave it be for the moment. Your sound is a little choppy, but I think it's the internet rather than the headphones.
Wait a minute. I've got a loudspeaker in. Let me take the loudspeaker out. It could be that. Okay, the loudspeaker is out. Is that better?
Well, it's acceptable. So let's move on if we can here.
Okay.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is simply to be quiet. Just get quiet and imagine a very loving moment. It could be a loving moment maybe with a pet, maybe with a child. If you have children, maybe at a time when you were nursing. I mean, a time you were sitting by a lake and felt very peaceful. You just want a loving moment. Do you have that identified yet?
Yes, yes.
Okay. You need not disclose it. Just get yourself into that loving state. Okay. And that, by the way, is a way of inviting unseen therapists or the Holy Spirit to come in because you're exercising love. All right, get to a loving state and just radiate it, share it with this part of your body and your arm. Just share it. Just bathe it in that. I'll do my own thing. You do yours. And we'll do it together, and we'll see what happens, okay? I'll see you in about a minute. Okay, Denise, check out your shoulder and your pains.
I'd say that's still about a 4, that one.
Okay.
And I'd say that's about a 3.
Okay. Now we want to do another round, and this round is going to involve everybody on the call. Previously, I asked everybody on the call to identify one or more of any physical discomforts you may have. I hope you've done that and made a little note. If you have more than one, there's 0 to 10 ratings. One's a 3 and one's a 7 or whatever it may be. Okay. But the goal here, and this is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to ask you to bring in unseen therapists for your specific ailment.
Yes.
I want you to please imagine that you are Denise having her issue, and you bring in love, identify a loving moment, bring it in, and bathe it in the various physical issues or physical areas. Do that. Now, that may seem like, well, gee, why would I do that? But remember, we're practicing course principles here. We are all one. If you are doing a loving thing for Denise,
yes,
chances are that loving thing, since we are all one, you are going to be getting a benefit as well. Okay. This takes practice sometimes. This is not, I'm not looking for perfection here at all. We're just trying to get glimmers and ideas of what's possible here, because you have the very beginnings and instructions. So the idea is we're all going to close our eyes. We are going to become Denise. We're going to imagine ourselves with these ailments. We're going to bring in love to bathe them in there. You're going to do it for Denise. And when we're all done, you may want to take a look at what happened with your own physical discomforts. Some of you may have some interesting results. Okay? All right. Hope I'm clear. So let us close our eyes and proceed. All right, Denise, check it out again. Tell me how the pains are.
It's still there. It's a bit better even, but it's still there. But it feels, it does feel better, I will be honest.
Okay.
I'd say maybe 2 or 3.
Oh, 2 or 3. Okay. It started at 10, and now we're at 2 or 3 or something like that. But let me point something out, if I may.
Yes.
When I first asked you about the physical pain, and you were talking about, up here, you were giving it a 10, but you weren't moving your arm or anything. You weren't doing anything like that. You just said it's a 10, just sitting there, moving nothing. Okay. Now, as we went through this, and this is often typical of people who undergo EFT, they'll get some results, and now They don't feel it. I mean, let me ask you right now, just sitting there right now without moving or anything, what number do you give it?
Just sitting?
Yeah.
I'd say a 1. A 1.
A 1, okay. See, what happens is we'll get improvements, but then we want to start moving our arm, etc., to start irritating or exaggerating or see if it's still there or something, okay? If I had asked you to do this to begin with, my guess is you had had a very hard time even doing it. Would I be right?
Yeah. Could I mention something, please?
Sure.
In the last few minutes, I've been getting a very bad pain in my intestine. It suddenly just appeared, very suddenly.
Uh-huh.
And that's been, and I'm just wondering, like, what they call transference of energy. And it was almost excruciating just now. So I sent love to that in that last process. And that's healed, but it's just very strange how that's happened. Does that happen sometimes?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up, because it allows me to get into some of the details of this process, okay? Quite often we will find, as we take care of one issue, or we relieve or give some relief for one issue, what Unseen Therapist is doing is taking care of emotional issues behind the scene that may be contributing to it, the belief in separation that may be contributing to it, and so on. And as we start to relieve some of those things, other things which are also related, but which don't show up because we've had this other pains, dominating. Now these things will start showing up. We actually have a name for it. We call it chasing the pain.
Oh, right.
So that's what happens. And so what you do, and you did it instinctively. You just sent Unseen Therapists into the intestinal areas that seem to be fine. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Denise, let me ask you this. Sometimes people who are sitting in the chair you're in and are getting benefits here can actually feel something from other people. You could feel it from me, feel from the other people. You could feel some kind of peace, some kind of stuff going on as a result. Did you feel that or not?
Absolutely. Every time, the first time was very prominent with me. It's almost like I felt you, or the intention of you, of your love, it's like shot into my body. It's like whoa, wow, like you dropped in, something dropped in.
Yeah. Okay.
So it must have been the intention of the love dropped in, and I really felt it. And I felt the energy all around here. Yes.
Okay, and thank you for that. A point of clarification in there. What you were feeling wasn't me. What you were feeling was Unseen Therapist. We are inviting Unseen Therapist. We are opening the door to Unseen Therapist. That's what we're doing. Okay. Now,
yeah,
there's an interesting little point. I have somebody else who wants to talk. Samuel. We'll call on him in a moment. But one of the impediments to this, I have a metaphor for that within Optimal EFT, and it's another name for our ego. Our belief in separation, and that I call it the guard at the gate. And the guard at the gate I have described, you'll see it on our website if you go to the instructions, all of which is free. I have described as a little 8-year-old boy who's very insecure about who he is, but he's very, very stubborn about his beliefs. Very stubborn. That's the ego, okay? And he's got this gate closed as tight as he can against the intrusion of Unseen Therapist, Holy Spirit's love. Okay, so that's you and me at work with our guard at the gate. We've got to loosen our own guard at the gates up to let more and more and more and more in. That's the point here. Okay. All right, Denise. Anything more before I go on to Samuel?
No, that's lovely. That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much for this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, Samuel, go ahead.
Hello. Hello. Okay. I was wondering about finances, and I see a lot of talk about the financial limit that we basically are set. And I've been noticing recently that I hit a limit and then I start losing money. And it's a consistent thing. And is there any particular practices or anything in particular that you found especially helpful for releasing financial limitations?
Well, the financial issues are, of course, are part and parcel of a separated world. I mean, it's something that in the spiritual dimension, who cares about finances? Okay, it's not even a topic. All right. So what I've done, I haven't done too much with the financial issues regarding optimal EFT, although we certainly could. The way we deal with that with the tapping form is we start going back into our past. You can do the optimal EFT as well. We start going back into our past and our beliefs that may have occurred, the specific events, the time, I'm going to make this up, okay? The time my father may have said, oh, only rich people make a lot of money. Only greedy people make money, okay? I don't know if that happened with you or not, but that's the kind of belief that would set in that would end up being a limit. You know, you're not spiritual if you make money. If you make money, you're taking it away from poor people. You know, all these kind of beliefs get in there. I would sit down and find out what your beliefs are regarding that. And then you can do the tapping formula regarding those beliefs, or you can bring in unseen therapists to deal with them as well. Does that help?
Yeah. I suppose in your course, do you have something particular on that? It's just something that's been plaguing me for years, that I've always wanted to do something more interesting and abundant with my life, but I always seem to fall back to the same settings almost.
Yeah, well, as far as do we deal with that directly as a specific topic on our website? No, but what we deal with is useful across the board for all issues. So your issue actually is no different than somebody with cancer as far as we're concerned, because we're aiming at the same causes. But you'll actually have to go to our website and study. It's all free, and it's there for you, and you go step by step through it. And you will find parallels for financial issues, weight issues, and all the other kind of issues that we deal with.
Okay, one more question then. What does it take to be a practitioner, or to someone to actually work with other people?
From an optimal EFT point of view, there is no requirement whatsoever. You need not have any kind of certification. There may be requirements in your area of the world, some government requirements or something like that. But there isn't any requirement for you to use, as far as I know, in your part of the world, A Course in Miracles to help somebody heal. Is there?
No.
Okay. There wouldn't be any for here either, and I don't impose any myself. It's really going to be, how good are you going to get at this, which is the same way with the Course. How well do you do your lessons? How well do you climb your own spiritual ladder in Course terms? It's the same kind of thing. The higher up you go, after a while, Samuel, this is one of the things that I discovered when I had my revelation back in 1988. I didn't mention it earlier, I'll mention it now. And that is, I was convinced, and still am, in that state, if I could maintain it, I could walk into a hospital and my mere presence would be so healing that, you know, cancer tumors would subside and lungs would get better and blood counts would improve and all of that just by my presence. Similar to what Jesus was doing 2,000 years ago. Okay. I'm not there yet. I'm trying to climb that ladder back up to that. But that state, which is where we're trying to go, gets to a point where all the earthly separated issues get resolved and become a non-issue. It's work to get there, however. Okay? All right. Thanks, Samuel. Okay. I don't see any more questions here. Mike or Ian, or do you have questions?
Well, I do have maybe a question for the wider group that we could put out there and see if anybody comes back with something is it'd be quite interesting to hear what other people's experience was of when we were all working with Denise's injury. I don't know if anybody's got any reflections that they might want to.
Yeah. I have a question as well. I just didn't ask it, and that is, did anybody notice for themselves a material, noticeable physical improvement or anything?
Well, about 3 days ago, I was lifting some heavy boxes and I strained my back, and I've been in a lot of pain, so not continuous pain, but when I sit still for a while and then move, or when I get out of bed in the morning, it's very, very stiff and painful. So I've been sitting here for an hour, so I'm going to get up and move and see if it's any different to the way it's been all day. Wow. Well, I could feel it, but certainly better than it has been.
Okay.
It was 7. I counted it as 7 before we started, and now that was about 2 or 3, I think.
Okay. All right. Now, I would point out one thing here. A lot of these physical results that we get on exercises like we were doing here oftentimes tend to be temporary, partial, this kind of thing, because we're really talking about a surface use of this process. That's all we can do here. But I've got the detailed uses of it all on my website. It's free. Everything is free. I go by the psychotherapy pamphlet comment that nobody should be turned away because they cannot pay. So everything on there is absolutely free. We do have a donation page if somebody wants to donate, but it's all free. I give webinars every other Sunday, which are all free. People ask questions. We have on guests. Sheri Baker is there now, and she answers questions as well. So that's there for people as well. I don't see anybody. Oh, here's somebody. Here's Chris S.
Yeah, there's a lot of Chris's in the world.
No, this is, hello, Chris.
Hi. I had the question. I have done a lot of different healing techniques, and actually in a class learned EFT. And when you said to get into have her body, your body be her body, I went, inside me, it went just like that.
Okay.
I guess I said I have no qualms about therapeutic touch, this and that, and why my thought was, I have so much pain myself, I can't take the chance of that coming into me, because that was it. I couldn't take the chance of mine getting worse.
All right. Thank you, Chris. That allows me to bring up another point. I sometimes make an error when I say become somebody else, because that's what I do. Now, in my webinars I've done before, some people have objected to that because they don't want to become somebody else. I only become somebody else because that's an evidence that we are all one. However, there is a group of people that are very empathic. They don't want to become somebody else because they actually feel somebody else's pain, feel somebody else's emotions, and so on, rather than identifying them. So in a case like that, you don't really have to become someone else. That's just what I do. What you can do is recognize that you are one. We're all one. That's a Course in Miracles principle. And
I can hear that.
Just share it with them. Let them be over there. But share it with them in a oneness way. Share, etc. Okay. Now, where are your pains?
Oh, right now, see, I can't sit without having pain.
Is it lower back or legs or back or what?
Right in my groin, right groin.
In the right groin. Is it like
that's what's right now? But every other pain she talked about, I have.
Okay. So because you didn't want to become one with her, you didn't do this exercise that we talked about. Do I have that right?
I heard, I didn't hear, what was the question?
Because you didn't want to be one with her because of that. That's why you didn't do, because of that, you did not do the exercise that we did?
Well, I was trying to do it as best I could, because I really have a draw to help her heal, and it's like you don't want to become my friend because all my friends have really big issues. A lot of them do. And so I see my friends and really, really want to help and try to see them as perfect, whole, and complete and that stuff. But so I really, in my heart, I want healing for Denise, and I tried as best I could, but I did have that, I don't want to be her body.
Okay. How is your groin now?
What, the pain for me?
Yeah. How is it right now?
At the moment, is when you asked, it is down some. It's like when I'm distracted, it goes down.
Well, let me suggest there's something more than being distracted going on. Because while you were talking, I was exercising something I haven't mentioned here, and that's called conversational EFT. I was having conversations with you. I was speaking with you, and all that time, because I practiced this, I'm bringing an unseen therapist for your groin. Okay, doesn't always work. You called it distraction, but in that process, your groin pain improved, did it not?
At this very moment, it's slightly less.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to be quiet in your behalf like I did with Denise. Is that okay?
May I ask you this question? Because the pain happens more when I'm sitting. You know, I can't sit down. So in my mind, my act of sitting is causing it to hurt. Do you know what I mean? And so I'm thinking that I'm fighting the possibility of getting better because I'm doing what aggravates it. See, I'm getting ready to stand up. So, actually, I can kneel down.
Well, let me just give it a try anyway.
Okay. Okay. Well,
I really got to tell everybody what we're trying to do. We're trying to demonstrate this. We can't expect to have across the board miracles and everything else with this process. Okay. At this point, with this lighter version. But let me give it a shot anyway. Let's just see what happens, okay? So I'll see. You need not do anything. I'm just going to sit here and do my thing, okay? All right. All right, check out your groin again and tell me what happens. Change.
It's feeling somewhat better, but I had the feeling that you were treating my trust. I don't trust God.
The sound isn't really good, Chris. You said that it was better, but
I had the feeling that my issue is just trust, that I don't trust. I don't trust.
That your issue is trust, therefore you're not trusting what we're doing here?
No, I'm not trusting God.
Okay. Well, okay. Now, and that's thank you for the point, Chris. And that gets to the psychotherapy pamphlet, which tells us that this process is limited by the limitations of the therapist, me in this case, and the limitations of the client, which is you in this case. And the lack of trust in God, of course, is the belief in separation, the ego showing up, the guard at the gate, in my terms, keeping the gate closed. Okay. So while that's not a subject for this webinar, it is the kind of thing where you could sit down, learn the the optimal EFT process, bring in unseen therapists simply for the trust in God, and do it over and over and over again. And the likelihood is that trust will start to shift. That's my suggestion anyway.
Mm-hmm. And the growing students, and I'll go, well, but I'm not sitting down, I'm kneeling down. So I'm not going to let you, I'm not going to let myself not go through a gyration of allowing to believe that you did something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
But I just want to. You know, I want to, and I'm going to release I'm trying to just eat blank.
Okay. Well, all right. That's going to be an issue that I really can't deal with, in a public thing like this. But if you want to, Chris, ask Mike how to get a hold of me, and I'll work with you individually.
Okay.
All right. All right, great. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Okay, I don't see any more hands raised. Do you have any more you want to ask Ian or Mike or Sheri? Do you have a comment? Anybody? Here we have, we have Rihanna. I think I said it right. Did I say it right? Rihanna? Hello? Well, somehow or other, she's not coming through. Okay, Mike, Ian, Sheri, anything else to add?
Well, I'd be happy to offer up a suggestion.
Please.
For Course in Miracles students, I know when I was reading it and trying to apply its principles, it kept talking about we want to choose the right teacher. We want to choose Holy Spirit in all cases. And I found I could make the choice very easily. Yes, I choose to see the way Holy Spirit is seeing this situation or this ache or this pain. But a lot of people tell me I can make that choice, but I don't feel I can hear. I don't feel that I have the intuition. I don't think I'm hearing Holy Spirit. And so one of the best ways to do that, the Course says, is to get quiet. In the stillness, we will hear God's voice today. He speaks to you today, but he awaits your silence. And that is something that we, of course, have difficulty doing, getting silent. And, of course, our ego doesn't want us to be quiet because it doesn't want us to get in touch with our higher voice. And so there tends to be a lot of resistance to getting quiet. That is one of the best ways that EFT can assist us in this process, because when we try to get quiet, the ego starts talking to us and tells us we don't have time, we're too busy, getting quiet is too weird, you'll probably fail at it, you probably won't hear anything, or we're afraid that we will hear something. The ego is just always telling us we don't need to get still. With EFT, we can work through all of those blocks and enable ourselves to get past those fears and to get quiet. Once we do get quiet, now we're sitting, we're meditating, as the Course suggests, at least 5 minutes every day. Now we're quiet, but we have all of these thoughts, which the Course calls our petty, intrusive thoughts. Again, we can bring in EFT, optimal or gold standard, and we can release those, you know, annoying thoughts, distracting thoughts that we have that keep us from getting quiet. And that is a huge help for us who want to more regularly go into the silence so that we can increase our abilities to get in touch with Holy Spirit, who is guiding our whole healing and awakening.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and you can bring in unseen therapy to the optimal EFT process just on the resistance to getting quiet. I did this several times with groups, not only on the internet, but live groups as well. People were having a tough time getting quiet. So since my particular audiences were used to the tapping process, I simply just had them walk them through a simple little 1 minute, in fact, a 20-second tapping little process aimed at getting quiet. And they got much more quiet. It was much easier to do it. So you can bring in, if you're having a hard time getting quiet, just be as quiet as you can and bring in unseen therapists to help you get quiet. And you do that before you then do another session. It's just a kind of a way to lead in, but I've seen that be successful a lot. I've got a question here from Alex. So Alex, let me call on you. Go ahead.
Hello, Gary.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Good. I would like to know exactly how to comport myself to be in the holy instant. Now, I was meditating and I occasionally get little voices telling me, and this one said to me, breathe. I thought, what? But I am breathing. And then I had to think about that, and I began to realize that I'm not breathing. It is breathing me. And I studied my breath and found there was a tiny little moment just before I appeared to take a breath. Is that where the holy instant is?
I don't know. I've never heard that before. The holy instant to me is something that is love inspired. It exists between two people, and where love just shows up. I've never heard it associated with a breath.
That was the revelation I got. It was an instruction telling me to be breathed, not think that I am doing the breathing,
okay,
but I am being breathed, and that made a great deal of sense to me.
Well, to me, says
in the same way.
Okay, I haven't gotten that instruction myself, Alex, and I don't know others that have had it, but you got it, and that would be an example of Holy Spirit giving you a specific instruction for you.
Yes, it reminded me very much of something T.S. Eliot wrote in Muskoka, and it goes on a bit, and it says, at the still point, there the dance is, at the still point. And there was another reference in another poet, Browning, the truth is within myself. There is an inmost center where the truth abides, and to experience that I have to give. I have to give it. And of course I've spent most of my life not giving but taking, and it helped me to identify a personal character defect. And to me, it's in keeping with be still and know I am. Be still. Be still. That's the hardest thing in the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
To be still.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges we have as course students. It's one of the challenges in Optimal EFT because we're bringing course principles into it. Sure.
You said something earlier on that I recognized. Treat only my own self. Only is my condition of separation. There's only what I call me and all these others. But that is the separation.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So I must treat only myself. And I am you and you are me. I understand that intellectually, but not experientially. I still lose my temper. I'm patient and I get arrogant and I get angry and oh dear, it goes on and on. And I think I really must stop this.
Okay.
Oh, stop. Stop. Well, what's the bloody point of anything then? And I've spent a long time before I came across the Course in Miracles, many years, trying to find out, since I was 18, I'm 74 now, what is the nature of reality? Why is there anything at all? That question. And this is it. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's a condition I have, and I had to invent some new words to describe it, and I called it an imaginated re-illusion. That's the closest I could get, and I was very happy to come across a reference by a translator of the Pali Canon Buddha, who said, it's like an illusion. Like an illusion. And there I'm stuck because I have to stop thinking again. And now I would like the experience, and it's at that still point. I'm expecting it.
Alex, I have to interrupt you just for a second. Your audio isn't, it's very choppy. And so your message isn't coming through as well as we might like. So I'm going to need to, I've got somebody else here that I need to speak with.
That's okay.
I thank you for your input. We're going to move on here if we can now to Titiana. Did I say it right? Titiana?
Titania.
Yeah, hi.
Titania, hi. Let me just turn down the volume so you don't hear your own voice maybe so much. It might be better for the sound. I was just wondering if you could have an example maybe of, for example, if someone's meditating, and we come across a blockage in the mind, like the example you used of, just being still sometimes can be difficult. Whatever the obstruction is that we come across, can we have a demonstration perhaps of how the EFT works in tapping terms, and then in optimal terms, just a quick demo of how to address that blockage, because it's about, am I right, looking at whatever the hurt is or the blockage in order to bring it to the light so that it can be let go. And is this what we're doing with EFT, is identifying so that then we can get past it. And I was just wondering if it would be possible to have a quick demo just so I understand how the tapping idea will work to address and let go of that, and also the optimal way of doing it.
Okay. I perceived more than one question there. Part of that had to do with how do you get still?
Or how do you use EFT to address any obstruction that comes up as we're meditating and trying to become closer to God?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It is frequent when we try to be quiet, especially if we're zeroing in on an emotional issue. We've been doing some physical stuff here in this morning.
Yeah.
But for an emotional issue, it is frequent for other things, distracting things to come in. Just like when you're doing your lessons, you're supposed to be quiet and be still, but your mind goes all over the place, and the Course knows you're doing that and keeps calling you on it all the time, and as the lessons unfold. Okay. I will give you, this is described on our website. It's the kind of thing that you probably need to go study on our website and see it 2 or 3 times, etc. But I'll do it once.
Okay.
To give you the idea of it. I was with a live audience, and I asked them, first of all, just to simply be quiet and be still for 1 minute. No thoughts, 1 minute. And they did that, and then I went around asking them how well they did, you know. And most people didn't get past 2 or 3 seconds. Those who meditated a lot, you know, got further into the minute and so on. But most people just couldn't be still. So I did a tapping form of EFT because they were all familiar with it. This is what I'm going to show you here, okay? And this is all being recorded, so you can play this back if you want later on. I then had the audience do the following. We would tap here on this side of your hand, continuously, and we would say, even though I have these blocks to being still, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then we would tap some of the meridian points, and we would say, these blocks to being still, 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 and then the point here, these blocks to being still. I know I went a little fast for many people who are not used to it, but back another time. However, so I then had the audience do that. In fact, we did it 2 or 3 times, I think, just for good measure. It didn't take long to do it. And then I had them go back into this 1 minute exercise. Now go back and be still for a minute. And with great frequency throughout the whole audience, hands were raised. They did much better. People who may got 3 or 4 seconds into it before, they were doing 20 seconds, 25 seconds. Some people were getting the whole minute. And this, it varied from person to person. But doing that little tapping process before you try to get still is likely to enhance, perhaps even dramatically, your ability to get still, and then bring in optimal EFT, bring in unseen therapist, Holy Spirit, your lesson, or whatever the case may be. You can do the similar thing with optimal EFT, is simply closing your eyes, knowing that you're having a hard time getting still, bringing an unseen therapist anyway, and then stop that process, try to get still again, and you probably improved. But the mechanical way, most people tend to like the best, especially if they're beginners. So I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Titania.
I have a question, Gary.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in optimal EFT. I knew nothing about it before tonight. How can I get, detailed instructions? Is that on your website of how I mean, we've got an idea from this, but
yeah, all you do, all you do, Ian, is you go to our website, emofree.com. When you get there, you will see 2 choices. You can either see there's a link for gold standard EFT, which is the tapping form, or optimal EFT, which is what we're talking about. Click on that. You'll go to a page. It has all the instructions on a page. You know, go to this section, this section, this section, this section. I mean, it takes you from beginners all the way up to our current thinking, etc. So it's all right there. It's all free. It will take you time to read the instructions and get the foundation under your belt and all of that, but it's all right there.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, I don't see any other, no more questions. I guess we're going to be done for the day. Anybody else? Ian, Mike, Sheri?
Well, I'd just like to say a huge thank you, Gary, and Sheri, for bringing your EFT expertise and your Course in Miracles expertise to us as a group. I mean, we put this out through the Miracle Network in the UK. I'm not sure if it might have gone, it's the internet, so it might have gone further. And I think, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I certainly think we might want more from you and Sheri. I don't know, is there any possibility that how might we get more of this kind of community experience with the Course in Miracles and EFT?
Well, I am more than happy to appear again if people want that. I also, as I mentioned earlier, give these webinars every other Sunday at 10 o'clock my time. They are absolutely free. You go to our website, you'll see a link there for them. Okay. and people can ask questions there. We have not, at this point, gotten into A Course in Miracles on those public webinars in detail. But we're beginning to do that now. So people can join us there. If you want me to come back here and Sheri to come back here, just let us know. Happy to do it. Happy to talk to course students all over everywhere. My favorite kind of people, even though we're all one. Even though we're all one, you guys are special to me. How's that, okay?
Sorry, I'd love to do this again. I think that's a great idea. I think we definitely should. So, well, if we're winding up, I'd like to say thank you to your giving your time. I found it absolutely fascinating and enjoyable experience. Really appreciate that. And thank you to Mike for setting it up in the first place, because if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have had the idea to contact Gary, and my lights just collapsed. So yeah, big thanks to Mike, and it's been great. It's been really good.
Well, thank you, and a big hug to everybody on here.
Thank you. You too.
We'll see you next time, whenever that may be.